Have you ever stopped to think about where the universe truly ends? Is there a final point, an invisible wall, a cosmic edge where everything simply ends? Or does space continue forever, without limit, without borders, without any kind of end? Imagine traveling at the speed of light for billions of years, traversing entire galaxies, passing stars that were born and died before Earth even existed, crossing regions where giant black holes distort time itself, only to discover that perhaps there will never be a place where you can say, here the universe ends. This question may seem purely philosophical, but it is actually one of the greatest scientific questions ever asked, because it doesn't just talk about space, it talks about the ultimate destiny of absolutely everything that exists, including every star, every planet, every atom, and even the very idea of time. When we look at the night sky, it seems we are seeing the universe as it is now, but that's not true. We are seeing the past. The light from stars and galaxies takes time to travel to us. Some of the galaxies we see today are so distant that the light reaching Earth began its journey billions of years ago, even before the sun existed. This means that observing space is like looking at a cosmic album of ancient memories. The farther we look, the closer we get to the beginning of the universe. The universe, as we understand it today, began about 13.8 billion years ago in an event we call the Big Bang. But this name can be misleading. It wasn't an explosion happening in empty space, it was the birth of space itself, of time, of matter, and of energy. Before that, there was no before. There was no space for anything to happen. The very concept of physical reality began there. And since that moment, the universe has never stopped changing. Right after the Big Bang, the universe was incredibly hot and dense, a cosmic soup of fundamental particles. Over time, it began to cool, allowing protons and electrons to come together to form atoms. Then the first stars appeared, then galaxies, then solar systems, then planets, and eventually, billions of years later, life began to emerge in at least one place we know of. But while all this was happening, something even more important was silently occurring. The universe was expanding. Entire galaxies were moving away from each other, not because they were being pushed, but because the very fabric of space was stretching. Imagine drawing dots on a balloon and then inflating that balloon. The dots aren't moving on their own, it's the surface that's expanding. Over time, scientists discovered something even stranger. The universe isn't just expanding, it's accelerating. This means that galaxies are moving away from each other faster and faster as time passes, and nobody knows exactly why. To explain this, scientists created the concept of dark energy, a mysterious form of energy that seems to exist in empty space itself and that pushes the universe to expand faster and faster. This is where the idea of the edge of the universe gets even stranger, because there is indeed a limit to what we can see. This limit is called the observable universe. It's as if we were inside a giant bubble of light. Everything we can observe is within this bubble, but that doesn't mean the universe ends there. It only means that the light from beyond that point hasn't had enough time to reach us yet. Beyond this invisible limit, there may be much more universe, perhaps infinitely more. There may be more galaxies than we can imagine. There may be giant cosmic structures that we will never see. There may even be regions where the laws of physics work differently, but perhaps we will never be able to confirm this directly. And there is something even more frightening. Some regions of the universe are already moving away from us faster than light because of the expansion of space. This means that even if they emit light now, that light will never reach us. These parts of the universe are, in a way, disappearing from our observable reality forever. If a civilization were to emerge billions of years in the future, perhaps it would look at the sky and see something completely different from what we see today. Perhaps it would see only its own galaxy. Perhaps not even that. Perhaps only near total darkness. Not because the universe ceased to exist, but because it expanded so much that everything became too far away to be seen. This scenario raises a profound and almost existential question. If something exists but can never be observed or interact with you, is it still part of your universe? And then we arrive at one of the most disturbing ideas in modern cosmology. Perhaps the real universe is much larger than anything we can prove exists. Perhaps we are living in a small, illuminated region within something absurdly larger and older. Some scientific models suggest that the universe may be infinite. Others suggest that it may be curved, like the surface of something in higher dimensions. This would mean that there is no real edge, only a geometry that we can't fully imagine. But regardless of which theory is correct, one thing seems increasingly clear. The universe was not made to be simple. It wasn't made to be intuitive. It's strange, profound, and full of mysteries that may take us thousands of years to fully understand. And perhaps the question isn't just where the universe ends, but whether it really needs to end anywhere. Because if the universe has no edge, then perhaps it also has no real end. And if that's true, then what we call reality may be just a small part of something much larger, much older, and much more complex than any civilization has ever imagined. And perhaps, at this very moment, beyond the limits of what we can see, the universe continues to grow, silent, infinite, and completely indifferent to the fact that we are here trying to understand it. If a civilization were to emerge billions of years in the future, perhaps it would look at the sky and see something completely different from what we see today. Perhaps it would see only its own galaxy. Perhaps not even that. Perhaps only near total darkness. Not because the universe ceased to exist, but because it expanded so much that everything became too far away to be seen. This scenario raises a profound and almost existential question. If something exists but can never be observed or interact with you, is it still part of your universe? And then we arrive at one of the most disturbing ideas in modern cosmology. Perhaps the real universe is much larger than anything we can prove exists. Perhaps we are living in a small, illuminated region within something absurdly larger and older. Some scientific models suggest that the universe may be infinite. Others suggest that it may be curved, like the surface of something in higher dimensions. This would mean that there is no real edge, only a geometry that we cannot fully imagine. But regardless of which theory is correct, one thing seems increasingly clear. The universe was not made to be simple. It wasn't made to be intuitive. It's strange, profound, and full of mysteries that may take us thousands of years to fully understand. And perhaps the question isn't just where the universe ends, but whether it really needs to end anywhere. Because if the universe has no edge, then perhaps it also has no real end. And if that's true, then what we call reality may be just a small part of something much larger, much older, and much more complex than any civilization has ever imagined. And perhaps at this very moment, beyond the limits of what we can see, the universe continues to grow, silent, infinite, and completely indifferent to the fact that we are here trying to understand it. If the universe truly has an ultimate destiny, that destiny may be far stranger, quieter, and more terrifying than any science fiction story has ever imagined. Unlike the explosive end we see in movies, the end of the universe may be something slow, almost imperceptible, happening over trillions and trillions of years as cosmic structures disappear one by one until only a cold, eternal void remains. To understand this, scientists have created several possible scenarios based on everything we know about physics, gravity, and cosmic expansion. And each of these scenarios completely changes how we imagine the future of everything that exists. One of the most widely accepted theories today is known as the heat death of the universe. In this scenario, the universe continues to expand forever. Galaxies continue to move away from each other until they become completely isolated. Over time, the gas that forms new stars runs out. Existing stars age and die slowly. Some explode as supernovas. Others simply fade slowly until they become cold, dark dwarfs. Trillions of years in the future, the formation of new stars may cease completely. the universe would become a dark place where only stellar remnants and black holes wander in an increasingly empty space. But the ultimate fate of heat death goes far beyond that. Even black holes, which today seem like eternal and indestructible structures, could disappear. According to Hawking radiation theory, black holes release energy slowly over time. This process is absurdly slow, potentially taking unimaginable numbers of years, far beyond the current age of the universe. But eventually, even the last black hole could evaporate completely, leaving only loose particles wandering in the cosmic void. At this extreme point in the future, the universe would be dominated by total thermal equilibrium. There would be no temperature difference between regions. There would be no energy available to perform physical work. There would be no complex chemical processes. There would be no structure, only particles extremely separated from each other, traveling silently through an almost infinite space. A universe where nothing happens and nothing new can happen. But there is another, even more dramatic and destructive possibility, a theory known as the Big Rip. In this scenario, dark energy would not be constant. It would become increasingly stronger over time. The expansion of the universe would accelerate to such an extreme degree that it would begin to overcome all the fundamental forces of nature. First, galaxies would be separated. Then stars would be ripped from their galaxies. Then planets would be ripped from their stars. Next, even molecules would be separated. And in the final stage, even the atoms themselves could be destroyed. Space itself would tear apart the entire structure of reality. If this actually happened, the end of the universe would be rapid in a cosmic context. In a matter of millions of final years, everything could disappear completely. The very concept of matter would cease to exist. The universe would end not in silence, but with a total rupture of the fabric of space. There is also the Big Crunch theory, which is almost the opposite of infinite expansion. In this scenario, the gravity of the universe would eventually overcome the expansion. The universe would begin to slow down, stop, and then contract. Galaxies would begin to converge again. The cosmic background would become increasingly hotter. The density of the universe would slowly increase. Eventually, everything could collapse into an extremely dense and hot state, possibly creating the conditions for a new Big Bang. This would create the possibility of a cyclical universe, where birth and death happen repeatedly. But perhaps the strangest fate is one we haven't yet been able to fully imagine. Some theoretical models suggest that our universe may not be the only one. It may be just a small part of a much larger multiverse. In this scenario, universes could be constantly born and die, like bubbles rising and disappearing in an infinite cosmic ocean. Our universe could simply dissipate, while others continue to emerge in other regions of reality. Another, even deeper possibility involves the very nature of space-time. Some theories suggest that time may not be fundamental. It may be an emergent property, something that exists only within certain conditions of the universe. If this is true, the end of the universe may not be an event in time, but a transformation in the very structure of reality. And then arises a question that may be the most unsettling of all. Does the universe really need an end? Or can it continue forever, changing shape, creating new structures, entering new physical states that we cannot yet predict? Perhaps the universe won't end with an explosion. Perhaps it won't end in darkness. Perhaps it will simply continue to exist, slowly changing, traversing cosmic eras so long that any human concept of time ceases to make sense. And while we consider these possibilities, there is something profoundly strange about our position within all of this. We exist at a time when the universe still has stars, galaxies, energy, structure, and light. We're living in a relatively active cosmic era. In the extremely distant future, civilizations that may exist may never know that the universe was once full of bright galaxies and gigantic structures. Perhaps the universe was not meant to be fully understood. Perhaps it's too big, too old, and too complex for any civilization to fully comprehend. And perhaps that's part of its beauty. Because while we look at the sky and try to understand where the universe ends, perhaps the real answer is that it never truly ends. It only changes, evolves, transforms. And perhaps, somewhere beyond the limits of what we can observe, the universe is already beginning something completely new.